Hi, my name is Ray Naylor, and this is Promoting Your Creative Passion. If I said the word sales, do you get a funny feeling in the pit of your stomach? Do you think, that's not something that I want to do? But you know, if you do the best promoting in the world, there comes a time where you have to know how to ask people to buy, and that's the word I'm going to use, to buy your product. I'll be back in a second, and I'm going to present to you one method that I hope will minimize the stress that you will have when you try to sell your creative product. Okay, this is a sales process that I learned a number of years ago, and I think it's pretty good. And I think if you do it correctly, which will involve practice, the first step is to establish rapport with your potential customer. Let's take a look at what that means. Well, it means to be friendly. You want to smile. You want to have good eye contact with a person. You want to listen to that person with active listening skills. Now, what you're working towards, and it may take more than one contact with the person, and probably will, you want that person to begin to like you and to trust you. But you want to do all this in an extremely sincere manner. You want to be concerned about what that person needs, what they want, and whether or not you can provide it. The next step is to determine the needs and wants of the potential customer. You do this by asking open-ended questions and closed-end questions when appropriate. Now, open-ended questions will encourage the person to talk and also to not give you just one-word answers. Here's an example. Let's say you're a musician and you're at a venue with the owner. You might say something like, tell me about your venue, tell me about your coffee shop, and also tell me what type of music that you're interested in. Now, normally you would not use closed-end questions at this point. I think there's one exception. One of the things in active listening is that you want to make sure that you understand what the person is saying. So here's an example, and you won't necessarily want to use these words. You want to whatever you say to the person, you're going to want to do it in your own way, a way that you feel comfortable, and it's going to make the other person feel comfortable. So, for example, you might say, if I understand what you're saying, you're looking for blah, blah, blah. And they will either say yes or no, and either answer is fine. If they say yes, then you know you're on the right track in terms of understanding their needs and their wants. If they say no, you have to ask some more open-ended questions so that you will understand what they're talking about. At this part of the sales process, you want to basically ask questions, and you want to shut up and listen. I'm sure we've had lots of experiences with salespeople who spend most of the time talking to you. You don't want to do that, especially in this step. Okay, so let's say that you really understand what the person wants and needs, so it's about time to do step 3. What you want to make sure is that you can, in fact, provide what that person needs and what they want. What happens if you cannot provide what that person wants? If they say, this is what I need, and it might be something that you've been thinking about yourself, or on the spot you may think, yeah, that's a good idea. Well, what you can say to that person is, I've been thinking about doing that, but I need some time to work on that. So I'm wondering if I can call you in about 6 months, or whatever the time limit would be, and I kind of give you an update as to how this is going. And maybe at that point, I'll be ready to offer you something that meets what you're looking for. Here's something else you can do. Did you ever see Miracle on 34th Street? I bet you have, where a Santa Claus is Santa Claus in Macy's. And somebody asked him, do you have this toy? He said, no, we don't have it, but Gimbals does. Initially, the owner of Macy's was kind of upset, was very upset that Santa Claus was sending people to another store. But then people started to say, wow, I can't believe that Macy's is sending us to another store to get what we really want. That's great. So we're going to shop here too. So you can refer your potential customer to someone else that you know will be able to do what they need. Okay, let's assume that you can provide what that person needs. Even if you've done all these steps correctly, the person may have concerns. I like to use the term addressing concerns. And this involves giving more information to your potential customer to try to answer those concerns. And hopefully you'll be able to do that. And once you are able to do that, it's time to go on to step 5. Step 5 is where you do ask a closed-end question. Basically, you're asking for a decision. And I think if you've done, as I said, if you've done the other steps correctly, it's a pretty easy question to ask. For people that are in sales, this is sometimes the most difficult question. And I think it's difficult because they haven't worked with a potential customer enough. And I think in a lot of situations, you won't even need to ask the question. Your potential customer will say something like, okay, let's go ahead with that. Okay, those are the 5 steps. I have some additional tips to give you, and here they are. Number 1, try to ask for permission to go to, let's say, the next step. The example I gave before, where you might ask the customer, can I call you in 6 months? Now, I said most people would say yes to that, but you still want to ask them. What you don't want to do is to say, I'll give you a call in 6 months. Well, why would you do that? Why would you ask a question, especially like that, where you know what the answer is going to be? Well, number 1, it shows respect for the other person. Number 2, it involves them in this process. You want them to be involved in this process as much as you can, rather than having them just be a listener. As I mentioned before, when you're trying to understand what the person wants and needs, one of the things that you want to do is to use active listening skills. And this is something that you can learn on the internet. There are books on it. You want to show a genuine concern for the other person. You want to focus on what they're saying. You do not want to focus on what you're going to say next, because you won't be listening if you do that. And I do want to repeat one more time, which I think is extremely important. You want to be sincere, truly sincere, when you do this kind of stuff. You want to be concerned about the other person. I want to end up with a quote, which I in fact use a couple times in my blogs. This is a quote by a guy named Zig Ziglar, who is a sales trainer. And this is kind of his mantra, and I think it should be our mantra too. He says, you will get all you want in life if you help enough other people get what they want. I'll see you next time.